just that whilst Bukky's getting her screen set up. But welcome, everybody. It's lovely to have you here. Thank you so much for joining us. I can't believe another, few weeks have passed since we last connected. Where is the time going? I hope that you are looking forward to half term if you're not already on it. It gives me real pleasure to welcome Bukky to tonight's session, and Bukky is going to be talking to us, as detailed on the screen here, about moving beyond stress and moving from that place of surviving to thriving. Bukky is a key member of the Teacher 5-a-Day community. Last month we had Patrick joining us, which was wonderful. So we're going to continue that conversation around Teacher 5-a-Day and how it can help support our well-being with Bukky. So I'm going to hand over to Bukky to introduce herself, if that's okay. So Bukky, over to you.
Thank you, Lucy, and thank you, everyone. First of all, could I just check that you can hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, brilliant. Okay, fantastic. Okay, so yes, I'm Bukky Yusuf. I've been teaching for over 20 years. I'm a senior leader in a special school. I am an educational consultant, a leadership coach, basically got lots of hands in education because I still love the role that I do, even though it can be stressful, but it does bring me joy in lots of different ways. And as Lucy introduced, I'm going to be looking at how we can move beyond stress during these stressful and challenging times so that we are not just surviving, but thriving. Okay, so let me just get this. So there will be, so I just need to quickly check something. The session overview, there's going to be, say, 3 aspects we're going to be looking at. We're going to have a well-being check-in to see how are we on this fairly cold, wet Wednesday evening. We're going to be looking at educator stress, and by that, looking at the stress within education and getting some data from that, and just to put it into context about what we're facing. And then towards the very end, we're going to be looking at what I call some stress busting strategies and suggestions. So these are not silver bullets or anything like that. It's looking at some of the simple things that we can actually implement that can help to minimize our stress as much as possible and help us to continue to enjoy the role. So first of all, so let me thank you in advance. Thank you, Lucy, for looking at these comments. How are you feeling? Are you in the green zone, feeling great? Yellow zone, feeling okay? Orange zone, yeah, struggling a little bit. Or red zone. So if I'm honest, I'm in the orange zone. I'm literally clinging on for the last few days until the half term starts, because it's been a very interesting but undeniably challenging term. But I wanted just to get a sense about openness and honesty about looking at realistically how we're feeling, and therefore realistically how we can actually move things forward. So I'm going to pause for a moment just to get a sense of how are you honestly feeling today. And there are some additional questions that we can actually look at as well. Mentally and physically, how would you say that you're feeling? And if you're not feeling, if you're say like I am struggling, what's taking up most of your headspace? So I'll share that and say I have got deadlines between now and Friday that I've got to get done before I can feel that I can actually just take my foot off the gas and actually relax during my half-term break. But what about you? How are you feeling physically, mentally, and what is taking up your headspace right now? Do we have any responses as yet, Lucy?
Sorry, Bukky, not quite yet, but please, everybody feel free to pop something into the chat box. Whilst people are doing that, I'm happy to share as well, Bukky, if that's helpful. So
yes, please. Yeah.
I think that I'm almost between the orange and yellow zone. So I think I am okay. It's been an incredibly busy term working with our student teachers and different research projects, etc. And I think that the reason I may be in the orange zone is because I have got lots of deadlines, a bit like you, but not just short-term deadlines, but long-term deadlines. And thinking, how am I going to manage these in the little amount of time that I have? So I'm trying to manage that, but I am feeling more in the yellow zone at the moment because I have been actively practicing self-care, not working in the evenings during September, which I'm really pleased about. So yes, we've got a couple that are coming in, Bukky, so I'll just share.
No, thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
People are saying that they're in the yellow zone. So somebody said that Leanne said she's noticed that her mind is going beyond half term to future plans. So a bit like Leanne, actually. And Miss Davies has said yellow, SATs mock test taking up headspace at the moment.
Okay.
So, yeah. We've got this so far. Oh, and another person, Kerry, I'm yellow/orange. I've got safeguarding training tomorrow and inset on Friday. So stuff still to do. And I know tomorrow will be good, but not easy. Somebody else saying orange, feeling ill, but happier after seeing the doctor. Thank you.
Oh, good. Taking time. Yeah, that's really good. And thank you for everyone that actually shared as well. So we're not going to spend too much time on this, but I just want to think about what are the activities that you enjoy doing. Okay, and if you're happy to share, I'll be interested to see what are the things that you hold on to. So one of the things that I've actually enjoyed doing is actually reading fictional books and things like that. I'm reading a memoir of somebody who was famous and recently died, and it's really interesting. I love reading children's books as well because of the escapism. Now I deliberately do that because I find that I don't always often have time during the term time to do that. So I'm carving out time as I travel to and from school to read something that is nothing to do with education and that can actually help take my mind off things. So even if I've got busy days, I know that I've carved some time out just to have a little bit of escaping, as I said. So what about you? I'll just pause for about a moment. Are there any particular activities that you enjoy doing? If you're happy to share, and I'll just wait for a moment.
So Miss Davies, Bukky, has said that she enjoys taking the dogs for a walk around Winter Hill. Kerry's shared yoga
lovely.
as well. We might have a couple more coming in. Walking my dog and having me time at the gym, shares Penny. And Leanne shares walking, meditation and reading. We've got family-filled weekends with little work to do. And Miss Page says spending time with my little girl and going for walks.
Oh, lovely. So lots of lovely things there, actually, that we actually engage with, which is really good. What about this one, though? What are some of the things that are causing you stress? So I shared some of mine at the start about the fact that I've got looming deadlines, and I think we already had some of those already. But I wanted to ask you those particular questions because of this. What does the word stress mean to you? Now, it's really, I think it's an important one because it can mean different things to each of us individually, but I think it can also mean different things within the organizations that we actually work in as well. So I'll be interested just to pause again so that we can actually have a common understanding for the sake of today's session about what I'm referring to as stress, and then looking at some of those stress busting strategies to try and minimize them. So pause again to see if anyone is happy to share what they would say stress means to them.
A long to-do list, shares Miss Davies.
Yes. I love checklists, but as it gets longer, you think, oh, that adds stress.
For Miss Page, stress is when you feel overwhelmed, and Leanne says overwhelm and rushing. I completely identify with that sense of never having time. Paul shares things I worry about and overthink about.
Yes, I can definitely agree with that.
And then Kerry says things don't feel in my control, and Penny shares trying to fit everything in without letting anyone down.
Yes, that sense of responsibility as well can add stress. So thank you, everyone. So this is what, and again, this is from the World Health Organization that shared it earlier this year, about stress being defined as a state of worry or mental tension caused by a difficult situation. But it's a natural response that that can actually help us to address challenges and threats in our lives. And obviously, I've highlighted in purple that the way we respond to stress can make a big difference to our overall well-being. Now, the Education Support is a charity run in the UK, and every year in November, which is the reason why I'm sharing 2022's data, they always actually look at the stress that educators within the UK are facing. So they just basically had a snapshot. And what was really interesting, I wanted to highlight this, is the fact that of the survey they undertook, 84% of the senior leaders said that they were experiencing stress. Now, we didn't have a definition of that, but if you can think about the fact that, like things that are actually causing, you're carrying in your mind and with you, we can actually look at the fact that 84, and it hasn't changed from the previous year, bearing in mind the previous year will look linked to the COVID years and lockdown and things like that. Now, this reduced slightly with school teachers, 72%, but that is increased by 3% from the previous year. And support staff, teaching assistants, etc., that's 68%, but that's up by 8%. Now, I wanted to also highlight this. Now, I understand from Lucy that you are a primary audience, of primary educators. What about this? Do we agree? When we look at the stress by phase, just pipping to the post with 79% are secondary schools, 78% primary schools, and it seems early years, according to this data, are the least stressed of all of us, but it's over 3/4 of staff who are actually feeling stressed nonetheless, though. So it's quite high in that regard. Now, this term presenteeism, as they actually said here, it's basically looking at how many staff, if you're really feeling unwell, who still feel compelled that they've got to come into school. And again, if I highlight it, what they've shared it as categories: senior leaders, school teachers, and staff. Now, this is up by 70% by the previous year. Senior leaders feel obliged to come in. And I'll share something that's really interesting. I've been at my present school, as I said, I work at special school for over 4 years. And the only time I've taken time off when I was ill was when I had COVID, because I literally could not get out of bed. I often come in, even have got migraines and things like that. And nonetheless, school teachers, 45%, that's the same as last year. And down from the previous year to 30% of support staff. So it's really interesting to see who actually feels obliged that they have to come in. And the last data I wanted to share with you from this particular report about how staff feel, in terms of confidence in disclosing any particular issues. Now, these issues, as they said here, are about relating to unmanageable stress or mental health problems. And I'd love to see a further breakdown of that, because even though we've got more things and discussions around mental health, there is a little bit of stigma and fear of educators about sharing when they're actually experiencing mental health issues. Now, with this, it's great to see that 37% feel confident, but the overwhelming majority say that they are not confident. And again, you can see the breakdown between senior leaders, school teachers, who they've up from the previous year, 61% that they said that they don't feel confident in being able to share when stress is unmanageable, and support staff. And I think part of that actually links to the school culture. I've certainly worked in schools where they expect you to work long hours, work hard. And if there's any discussion about the fact that you are finding it stressful, that it was taken to be that you couldn't manage it. So I think that there are some discussions that need to be explored in that regard as well. I'll just take a moment to look at the impact of stress on us in terms of our mind. So muddled thinking, impaired judgment, indecisions, or hasty decisions. I certainly find that the more stressed I am, the faster I do things, but it may not always be the best decision. Looking at then how that responds and how we act. So I'm sure it's many people like me, your appetite increased, but I'm eating more of a junk type food, which coincidentally, even though I love it at the moment to give me a boost, it doesn't actually make me feel better. Insomnia, lack of sleep, drinking more, etc. Then we've actually got the impact upon how it actually feels, alienation, apathy. And then lastly, the physiological impact of that. And again, this list will not be a surprise to many. So this can actually be reflected in lots of different ways, even when it's not always clear to us about why we may be acting or our bodies are responding in particular ways. So what I'm now going to do is just look at some of the ways we can reduce stress. And I'm going to share some strategies first and foremost with a series of prompts. And let's give an opportunity to pause to think, okay, realistic, does it work for you or not? Now, if you go online, there are so many different lists about how you can reduce stress. It's coming out of your ears. But the question is it really meaningful and applicable or relevant or useful for you? Now, you mentioned, Lucy, about the fact that last month, Patrick Otley O'Connor is somebody I admire in education. And this was something that he shared a few years ago, still relevant, I think. And he says that my advice to anyone in education is to look after yourself. And he's reminding us that before we can even look out for anybody else, we need to be taking care of ourselves. And he stresses that senior leaders need to be setting the way in being well-being role models who actually demonstrate on a daily basis the positive behaviors that they expect from staff. So it might be things about not sending emails late at night, or thinking carefully about when staff are able to actually leave sites and continue and things like that. So just looking at what behaviors actually work that will suit the staff that we're actually working with. Now, part of the reason I also mentioned Patrick, is that we, as Lucy has said, are parts of the Teacher 5-a-Day community, part of the Teacher 5-a-Day steering group. And the Teacher 5-a-Day actually links to good well-being habits that are reiterated in various different ways. But there are 5 different aspects about this. And it links into us taking control of our well-being. And I'll quickly share the definition here about well-being: being comfortable in where you work and what you do, being healthy, and being happy. But the 5-a-day, as I say, there are 5 key aspects. So it's about connecting, exercise, learn, notice, and volunteer. Now, I want to stress before I dig deeper into these 5 areas, we shouldn't be expected to do all of these things each and every day on a weekly basis, monthly basis. I think it's about giving us an anchor about what we can actually do that helps to our needs and actually can help to alleviate some of the stresses that we feel as educators. So connect. So who are the most important people for you to connect with? And they could be staff within school, colleagues within school, or beyond. And I think this is the most important question. How could you connect with them regularly? Now, I'll share a little bit of my experience before I started with Teacher 5-a-Day, which is over about 5 to 6 years ago, been with it for quite a long time. The only time in which I would connect with my, as I call my collective nearest and dearest family members, friends I've been, who've known me even before I became a teacher, the only time in which I made time to connect with them would be during the breaks, sometimes the weekend. And that really wasn't good enough because it wasn't sustaining my well-being needs. And that sense of disconnection as well didn't actually make me feel better. So I actually ask you those questions. If you think connecting with others is something that is really important to me and helps to lift my sense of well-being, who are these people? And more importantly, how do you connect? So what I do, I could show, wave my phone by my side. I always have my phone. So it might be WhatsApp messages or LinkedIn messages or quick emails or voice notes on the go. I love that. It just actually allows me to connect and not make me feel as though I disappeared off the earth and I'm still actually tapping into my support network. Now the exercise. If you only had 5 minutes to do exercise, what would you do? Now, for me, I try and walk as often as I can. I'm not a fan of going to the gym. I think it's great when people exercise and things like that, but I find it quite tedious if I'm honest. So I try and incorporate walking as much as I possibly can. And I particularly try and do this to and from work. How would you, though, incorporate any form of exercise on a weekly or monthly basis that allows you to actually take care of your physical self? Now with learning, now this one is deliberately looking at learning that we do beyond our own. As I said to you before, I love reading. I absolutely love books, complete bibliophile. But what I noticed actually was the fact that I tend to look at things that are linked to my role as a senior leader or education or coaching, etc. It's all to do with my work. So the question would be, which hobbies or books are you actually interested in? And as I said, now, the way in which I include this part of my week or weekend is on the way to and from work, just reading it. Just to, even if it's only a few minutes, it's actually helped me to tap into something that is beyond what I actually do. How could you incorporate that if learning is something that you actually love and enjoy? Now, notice can be taken in different ways. It could be externally noticing the world around you. I love this time of year, autumn, because of the colors and things like that. I'm drawn to colors being a visual person. So I actually like to spend time looking at this changing season around me. But notice could also be being mindful about how you are feeling internally. Are you feeling tired or irritable? Is it difficult for you to explain actually how you're feeling? So the question is about this. What helps you to be in the moment? It could be externally looking around you, noticing what there are, doing a sense check, or maybe linking it more to mindfulness and how you can actually safeguard time to do this regularly. Now, for me, I tend to notice when I feel overwhelmed. Okay, one of the things about being stressed is the fact that I find it difficult to think about things clearly, and I know this Bukky is a sign that you're overwhelmed. So what I actually now do is pause and take a deep breath, because I found out latterly actually that actually helps to regulate the nervous system and actually slows things down. And it helps me just to think, okay, disconnect, just take a moment and re-engage with a sense of being a bit more relaxed and calm and more in control of the situation. If noticing and being present is important to you, what are the things that could actually help you to do that? And more importantly, when can you safeguard time? Now, I'm not always great. As I say, the busier I get, it's like the wheels fall off the bus type of scenario. I get faster, I do things, and it's not always brilliant. So that is the reason why, for me, the half-term breaks or the holidays, sometimes even the weekends, my Saturdays, I safeguard that time now just to pause and reset. That's something you could actually do that will help you. And last but not least, volunteering. Now, there is research that actually says that us helping others can actually help our sense of well-being. So if giving, donating in a way that is comfortable and meaningful to you is important for your sense of well-being, what could you support someone with, and how and when could you actually do this? What are your thoughts? What seems practical? What resonates? Does it seem like, oh my goodness, it's a lot how could anybody do this? What are your thoughts?
I've just opened up the chat box, Bukky.
Thank you.
When you were talking, for me, notice is really strong in relation to this project, I think, because actually keeping the diary toolkit gives you that opportunity to notice things externally, but also notice internally, and thinking about stress. How am I feeling? Am I feeling stressed? If so, what can I do practically to calm that nervous system, to lower that level of stress, to get me back into the green zone, if you like? So yeah, I think that's really important. Please feel free to share things in the chat box, everybody. I can have a look.
Yes, even if you think that sounds like a lot of work, that will cause me more stress, which is what I initially thought when Martin Rio, who actually devised Teacher 5 a Day, came up with that. I just thought, how on earth am I going to have the time to do all of this? I'm barely able to do my job. When am I going to do that? But over time, I actually built it in, as I shared earlier.
And I think actually using your diary toolkit to reflect on these questions could be really powerful, actually. So yeah, that might be an entry for today or tomorrow. So
that would be.
Says, she tries to keep in contact with friends and not cancel plans with them if I feel stressed. Yeah, that's wonderful. Accountability. Year 4 St. Paul's, to everyone, says 5 a day helps to make a conscious, structured effort to switch off and have some me time. Yeah.
That is really
and Kerry is sharing. Oh, sorry, we've got a flurry of comments. So Kerry was sharing, I think acknowledging that 5 minutes is enough rather than waiting until I have an hour. I completely agree with that, Kerry.
Totally.
And Paul shares that, as Lucy says, the notice is great, both for my personal feelings, but also outside changes and observations. Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay.
I think the 5 minutes is important, isn't it, Bukky?
Absolutely.
If we wait for an hour, we'll never do it.
Exactly. And it's amazing, particularly when you just slow your thinking and your thoughts down, how much you can actually get out of 5 minutes. I even had, for example, perfumes. I love scents and things like that. So sometimes my pick-me-up is just 2 minutes just to daub some perfumes onto my wrists and just take in how it makes me feel, and the fragrances, or even a nice cup of tea within 5 minutes. So I think there are a lot of different things we can actually do within 5 minutes, can actually lift our spirits and our sense of well-being. Okay, so thank you for everyone for sharing that. Now, I was just thinking, just in case some people were saying, yeah, that seems like a lot to do, which I agree, which I can actually understand, because that's how I thought. I wanted to actually just give you some shorter tips, something that is simpler and easy to do within 5 minutes. Okay, so this stress bucket idea was actually originated, I think, in 2002 by Professor Brabant and Dr. I can't never say his surname, Turkington. I'm sorry, Douglas, if you ever watch this and I've mangled your surname, Turkington. And it's this idea about the fact that, first of all, looking at the bucket, there are 4 different zones that you can actually see that we can use to give us a language to talk about how stressed we are actually feeling, either relaxed at the bottom, coping well, becoming stressed or feeling anxious, or overflowing and overwhelmed. I know that a few of us already use that word to describe when we're being stressed. Now, at the top of the bucket, you've actually got the things that are adding, the stressors. What is it that's actually filling up your bucket and it's actually making you start to feel stressed? And at the bottom, you have got the holes. They are strategies, coping strategies you can actually use to remove some of the stresses so that your bucket doesn't actually get to the overflowing and overwhelmed. Now, if you want to do this and take a little bit more time and use your Reimagining diary to think about this and journalist, there are some particular questions that you can actually think about in relation to this. And first and foremost, what are the stresses that actually fill up your bucket? I find it sometimes what I used to say is, I'm feeling stressed, I'm feeling overwhelmed, but I couldn't actually define or articulate in a meaningful way what was causing those stresses. And sometimes listing it helps me to think, right, okay, I can see it. And now I can actually take action against it. Now, one of this, but first of all, lack of sleep is something that caused me enormous stress. I didn't sleep enough last night or the night before, again, because this is the week before we break up. And I'm just thinking about all the things I had to get done. How can you tell when your bucket is overflowing? And they define this as your stress signature. So there may be an emotional or physical or even behavioral signs that actually are symptoms that highlight this is stress. And I think more importantly, how can you release the water from your bucket? Okay. And these are strategies you could actually implement. Now, on the next slide, this is an activity that you can actually undertake in 4 steps to draw your stress bucket. And there are questions you can actually ask yourself. Look at what the stresses are in your life. How can you tell when your stress buckets are overflowing? Step 3. And number 4, what are the coping strategies? Now, I want to just highlight regarding the coping strategies about the fact that it's really important for us to think about using healthy coping strategies. We said it before, going for a walk or walking our dogs and going to the gym, rather than some of the initial coping strategies I used which were unhealthy, like overeating or maybe, like spending a lot of time on screens and things like that. So I think it's really important to notice whether those coping strategies are healthy or not. Another thing you can actually use really, really easily is this emotional awareness checklist, okay? It won't even take you 5 minutes, but this can actually help you to use the language to describe internally, what I call making the implicit explicit, because I think sometimes it took me a long time to find the language to articulate and share what was making me feel stressed and how it made me feel. So what words describe how you're feeling? What are the thoughts that you're having about or in response to this emotion? What physical sensations are you feeling? Part of the reason why I stopped to pause is I feel like my heart is racing and I'm not breathing deeply enough to make me feel relaxed. How intense is this emotion? How long does it actually last for? And what actions can you tend to take when you experience this, and how drastic are they? So if the stress bucket exercise feels a little bit too long, these are some questions that you can use to think about. Now, we mentioned about to-do lists. I love checklists. I love to-do lists, but it stresses me out. It gets really long. So there's this idea of a don't list, or to-don't list, as someone that you referred to it. So this is an example that I thought was a really nice way to highlight that. Don't sleep less than 8 hours. So you're focusing on the proactive aspects. Don't drink too much coffee and so on. So for some people, And Lucy, what I forgot to say is, I'll actually share, there's an article that linked to this that I actually got this screen grab from. It's about a 5 to 10 minute read, but it's really interesting to hear about the lady that decided to do this particular strategy. She did her don't list for a week, and she talked about the impact it made on her life, what were the pros of it, what she found, she needed to tweak. So I think it's a really good way to, if you're thinking, oh, this might be an idea that I could actually try out, I'd be happy to share the link following the session as well. Now, sleep. Sleep often comes up, but my question is, do you get enough sleep? And sleep is something I find challenging during the term time. I'm a natural night owl, so getting up early always disrupts me. And when we head into holidays or come out of holidays, my sleeping patterns always change. Now, you may think, oh, okay, well, if we don't get enough sleep, it's not an issue, but that's actually sleep deprivation. And you can see some of the different factors that it can actually link to. Some people may think, well, look at these: poor judgment, fatigue, memory loss, irritability, lack of focus. That doesn't sound like a major thing. I can catch up with my sleep. However, I wanted to actually highlight this. These are some of the things that can actually happen as a result of ongoing sleep deprivation. Now, notice I say sleep deprivation and not insomnia. There are obviously different categories in that regard. And I highlighted this, that you can actually end up with symptoms that are similar to ADHD. Over the years, in the past few years, there are a number of people that I know, as friends, family, colleagues, virtually as well, who are sharing, I think I've got ADHD, or they've actually gone from assessments and have been diagnosed with ADHD. But I just wanted to highlight that sometimes by not actually sleeping enough, we can actually end up with symptoms that are similar to ADHD in that regard. I've mentioned about education supports, and how they provide support for free support for educators in the UK. And if you Google education support and actually share about their technology tips, this is about a 33-minute video that is free for anyone to access about how we can actually use technology to create more of a life outside of work. In other words, to reduce the time that we spend doing things. If you don't have 33 minutes, because you're busy, I've got some questions about how you can use tech. Now, if you Google my name, I love things to do with technology and edtech. So that's why I had to put a little bit of flavor in here. But are there things that you can automate, things that you repeatedly do so that it can help you to streamline processes, undertake things more efficiently, or reduce duplication? Do you know what it's like when you have to do a report in triplicate and different versions because somebody's asking you to do that? Are there things you can actually automate? Now, I will say, you obviously may not be responsible or have the ability to directly change how things are actually done within your school, but it could actually maybe help you to have those particular conversations to see, can we use the technology to do things differently? What about this? Can you use the technology to help you eliminate things, remove it altogether, delegate, or defer whenever you can? And the last question, how can you use the technology to safeguard time for you? Okay, maybe at the start of the end of a day, evenings and weekends. So these are just some simple questions to think. With the tech, is there something we can actually do? Now, something simple with regards to tech. I had a discussion with one of my friends and colleagues earlier this week about our phone and how, to him, he doesn't have his work phone on his mobile. So in the evening and weekends, there's nothing work related that's going to disturb him. So that could be something in which you could use technology to actually safeguard your time. Now, these are just some snapshots, and I deliberately kept the list short, but it's just hoping to stimulate some thinking, but to most importantly, find out what works for you. That is the key thing. There is no silver bullet. We respond to stress in different ways. And what can help us to reduce our stress? There are different approaches we can all have. So thank you so much. And it's deliberately short because if you're like me, you're coming to the final stages of this week before the half term. I didn't want to keep you here, but thank you so much for listening to my session and attending. And if you want to follow me on social media, you've got my Instagram, Twitter. I still call it Twitter, even though it's X, or LinkedIn details that you can follow me on. Before I actually hand over, Lucy, if I may, I have I would really appreciate some feedback from anyone who is happy to spend a few minutes just to look at what resonated with you and what you're going to do as a result of today's session. I'm going to share the link in the chat, Lucy, if that's okay. Thank you.
Absolutely, Bukky, and I can share it in a follow-up email as well.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Firstly, Bukky, thank you so much. We've got loads of people saying in the chat box, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. It was a really great thought-provoking session that you provided lots of tips and ideas, you know, to take forward. And I think you're absolutely right that it's thinking about what works for you, and what works for you this week might not work for you next week. So it's about developing that toolkit. So you've got a range of strategies that you can use in those moments of stress and to keep that bucket from overflowing. And again, I think that's where the diary toolkit can really support us as educators and think about, okay, what is maybe making me feel quite stressed this week? What can I do to change that? And what, you know, moving forward, what do I want to tweak? And I think that can be really powerful. So it might be that an overarching theme for this week's entries are around stress and managing that so that you're moving from surviving to thriving. And I think, as you said, Bukky, as well, the half-term breaks can be a really good moment to sort of pause and reset and think, reflecting on the term that's just gone. What went well? What didn't go quite as well? What do I want to do differently? So yeah, I'd just like to say thank you again, Bukky, for everything that you brought to this session. I've found it really inspiring to listen to you and all the amazing work you're doing. So thank you. I will let you go.
All right, no, thank you so much.
I will just keep you for a couple of minutes, just with a few reminders, and then I will let you go into your evening and to de-stress following Bukky's presentation. So I'm just going to share my screen very, very quickly. I'm not going to keep you for very long, as I say. I always start with this, and we might not necessarily think about this in the chat box, but I think it's really important to just take a moment to reflect on what we're grateful for or what we're thankful for, however big or small that might be. And the reason I say that is in those moments of stress where everything is feeling overwhelming, actually pressing pause and taking a step back to think about the bigger picture can help us to lower those stress levels. So if you would like to pop something in the chat box around what you are grateful for, then please do so, but also just taking that forward and thinking about later on today. So something I'm grateful for today is the opportunity to catch up with a really interesting CPD session that I've been hoping to catch up with for some time, and I wanted to do so before the link expired. Managed to do that today and found it really interesting. So I'm looking forward to using that in a session with my trainee English teachers in the future. So yes, that's something I'm grateful for. Autumn sunshine, Leanne. Oh, that's lovely. I'm glad you got some sunshine. I haven't. For a windy day to dry my washing. Oh, it always smells lovely as well when it's been dried outside. So fantastic. So this is just a couple of reflections in terms of the diary toolkit and moving forward. You've obviously been customizing it for this past month, or will be customizing it if you haven't quite got to that point. So I hope that you've enjoyed that experience. I just wanted to share a few prompts thinking about that customization process. But before I share those prompts, just a reminder to complete the mini wellbeing check-ins. They're really, really important when it comes to us gathering data to move the project forward. They only take 2 minutes and they are anonymous, if 2 minutes at that. So please, if you can just complete that survey, I'll share it in the post-CPD email, then I would really, really appreciate it. But when it comes to the customization of the diary toolkit, how have you used your diary toolkit over the last month or few weeks since we last spoke? So what worked, you know, in terms of the transition activities and main activities that you used? What didn't work? And it's absolutely fine to reflect on the things that didn't, because that gives you data to move forward with recustomizing it. What do you want to keep and take forward? So there might be an activity that you really, really enjoyed and you might want to do more of it, but also what do you want to change? And this is an opportunity for you to do just that. Those cards are there to swap in and out as many times as you want to. Please don't feel fixed to a certain format. This is your diary toolkit for you to use in a way that works for you. So just some further questions to dig a bit deeper. Will you use all of the transition activities moving forward, or are you going to focus on a few? And will those few be the same as those that you used last month? And it's absolutely fine if you don't want them to be. Which are the activities that you want to practice and take forward? Again, are they the same as last month? Are you going to just have 3 activities that you rotate? Are you going to have 5 or 7 and do 1 on a daily basis? Again, think about what worked for you or didn't. Do you want to take a random approach? And that's absolutely fine. Are there any new activities that aren't in the diary toolkit that you would actually like to incorporate? Maybe something that you've used in a previous diary or journal. Are you going to keep your diary toolkit as a Monday to Sunday version, or are you going to think about a Monday to Friday version? And again, how are you going to use that reflect stage if you want to keep that part of it? So I'm just sharing these questions. I know I shared them last time, but I think this is the opportunity to zoom out and to step back and think about what's been working, what hasn't, what tweaks or changes do I want to make in order to get the most from my diary toolkit and my reflection time. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. Oh, one more thing. The date for our next CPD event, that's going to be happening on the 22nd of November, which feels very close to Christmas, at 5 till 6. And we'll be welcoming Malavil Krishnasmi from Proactive Wellbeing Coaching. And she's going to talk to us about how to support ourselves and our team. So I'm really, really looking forward to that. So I will stop sharing now. And just in case there are any final questions, please feel free to unmute your mics, or if you want to pop something in the chat box. Obviously, you can email me at any point as well, and I will do my very best to answer. But I hope that you're enjoying using your diary toolkits. I hope that just having that opportunity, as Bukky was saying, to just press pause and think about what you need in that moment, and also what you need long term, can be really, really powerful. I certainly find it helpful. And if it's still feeling a bit tricky to get it in the right place for you, then don't worry. We'll talk a little bit more next month around habit formation and just supporting you with that. But just try different places. If you've been focusing on it in the morning and that's not working, think about in the evening or lunchtime. Something is better than nothing. So 5 minutes, as Bukky was saying, can be really, really powerful. So even if you just dedicate 5 minutes to your diary toolkit, so 2 minutes for the transition or 1 minute for the transition, and then 3 to 4 minutes for the main activity, that's still powerful and that's still helpful in terms of allowing you to notice. So I'm going to stop the recording. I'm going to say a very fond farewell and goodbye to you. I hope you all have a wonderful and relaxing half term when you get there. Please invest in yourselves to top up your wellbeing cup, because you are the biggest resources inside and outside the classroom. But thank you again for joining me this evening, and I hope you've enjoyed the session. Take care, everybody.